Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to MATHurdays. Math's so fun. We do it on Saturdays. My name's Teresa Wills, and thanks for coming. And let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to focus on a routine called clothesline math and a task that simulates what you can do if you're going to do a project with students that's highly differentiable, but also gives students a clear guide of what to expect during this project that you might use as an assessment. And it's all going to be based on Olympic data. Fractions are going to be highlighted. However, you could go a lot of different routes with this. So let's jump right in and get started. I think everyone here has the link, but just in case, let me paste it into the chat box. And on slide 3, you'll see a link to templates and other MATHurdays sessions if you're looking for more resources. And then if you'd come on down to slide 4 and let us know what are your successes and celebrations. For those of you who attend regularly, what have you been doing the last couple of weeks? Go ahead and share with us here. Feel free to add pictures and more. And I'll share my little success this summer as a way to still be out and about, but not be in buildings and places like that. My family has visited Virginia State Parks, and we made it to 15 different parks this summer, and the kids have been earning the little junior ranger badges and stuff. So lots of camping, lots of outdoors, lots of mountains, and lots of ocean time. Lily, hi. You're getting ready to start. What is Premier League season for you?
This is English Premier League. I'm a huge soccer fan, or I should say football fan. And my favorite team's first game starts in 30 minutes. So I was debating, should I skip this today? But I'm here. So I'm celebrating both. I'm being here and delay watching the game for 30 minutes so I can do both. Good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you. And today is going to be completely sports related. We're going to look at a lot of Olympic data. So, hopefully you'll be able to put your team on top here.
Thank you.
Let's see, who's doing this Building Math Momentum? Tell us a little bit about it.
Hi, Teresa. It's Kathy. Good morning, everyone. We haven't started teaching yet. We start just before the Labor Day long weekend, so end of August. And we offer professional learning sessions so teachers don't have to get supply teachers during the year. Is sort of the plan, but that's shifted. And so we're just looking at things we can do, routines we can get established at the beginning of the year to really uncover how kids are thinking mathematically. Changing the culture in a classroom. And so we have 4 days straight of online learning and a variety of things, and super excited, Teresa, and thank you for the option for me to share MATHurday and math routines with the teachers I get to work with.
Absolutely. So excited that you're sharing it. Again, I try to put everything that we do on MATHurdays and other situations up on my website so teachers can use it. So glad it's being used and shared. Raha, how is getting ready for 3rd grade?
Hi, Teresa. Getting there slowly. It was something that I did not want, but I'm excited to modify some of the MATHurdays for 3rd grade and see how they respond, because I don't think anyone has done that in our building yet. So I'm excited for that.
Ooh, keep me posted. My daughter is a rising 3rd grader, so definitely got some home field advantage on what 3rd graders think and do and all that good stuff.
I love that. Oh, you know what? That just tells me the universe was looking out for me. They're like, Teresa's going to be in that mindset, so do it. Go for it.
Yep. And Lisa, I saw here that you had a great summer. How's it going?
It was great. We had the grandbaby a couple of weeks ago and took her to her first zoo trip. She loved it.
Awesome.
I'm ready for school, but in Texas, we have to not require masks, so a little worry about that one.
Yeah, be safe.
I will. I'll be covered head to toe.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Laura, it looks like you are bringing out the PPE.
Well, actually, it's more like just dumping and decluttering. Like we haven't, because the shutdown from 2 springs ago, like in March, and the schools closed. We didn't really get to pack up our classrooms, and then when we came back for concurrent learning, we had to like shove furniture everywhere so that we could have the social distancing space. So my classroom is like 2 years worth of mess that I have to go through. So this week and next week is just cleaning out the 2 years worth of mess.
Teresa,
Yeah.
before you believe anything Lara says, there is no mess in Lara's room. I can send you a personal picture of her room. Her mess is our average tidy, clean day. And like the way we see mess is not what Lara's mess is, okay? Lara is perfectly fine. She like took out random stuff and she's like, look at this mess. I was like, that's nothing. That literally was one book and one pencil, and that's a mess. So don't believe anything she says.
Now all I'm doing is thinking in terms of ratios between like the ratio of like what mess is for one to another. Yes, we definitely had lots of learning space in my classroom. Val, welcome. How's the great grandson and daughter doing? Oh, did we lose Val?
No, you didn't lose me. I just
Okay.
can't find the button to unmute.
No worries. We all take it easy here.
They're fine. They're just turned 2 recently, the great grands, and we haven't seen them since Christmas of pre-COVID. So they were babies the last time we saw them. Infants, yeah.
Aw.
So we're very excited.
Well, glad you're here. Glad you're having a good summer. All right, folks,
Yep.
let's jump right in. I am so excited to be back, and we're going to start off with clothesline math. As just a reminder, especially if you're just joining us, regardless of the setting, spending a few minutes to have this kind of informal community building, but also this open form. It's not like you have to do one thing or the other. You can add images, GIFs, you can just write in there. It's a great way to give every student a voice. So let's head on down to clothesline math. Join me on slide 7. And wow, did these get small? Let me go ahead and increase the size on those. Join me down on slide 7. Today is all about using the Olympic data. And so what I have here is some data from some different countries. Now, this is absolutely real data. It has not been math teacherized at all. And these are number of gold medals in the most recent Olympics. You'll notice that some of these fractions have been simplified. Others are unit fractions and more. And so go ahead and take one of these fractions and line it up on the number line from 0 to 1. Where would these fall? You can grab any one you like and bring it to about where you think it would be. And as you're doing this, you are welcome to grab other people's and give it a little nudge one way or the other. I might even I'm going to take off this 1 as an end point and just make it an open number line so we have more room on there to put things. And I think I'll even ask someone what would be an appropriate end point. But here we are. There were 340 gold medals given out this year in the Olympics, and that's how many each country racked up. So I'm going to change this endpoint to the right, to the US. 39 of 340 is all the way to the right. Where would the others land? And you're right. Some of these aren't so easy. I'm going to call on a couple folks. I'm going to let you know that I plan on calling on you by changing the text box to green. If you were like the person who most recently moved that, I'd love to hear from you. In the green box here, we have Great Britain, and the fraction with it is 11 slash 170, and I'm saying that very purposefully. If you were the most recent person to move that, what did you have to think about here in terms of moving it? What do you think 11 slash 170 means?
So I moved that one. I put it not quite 2/3 of the way to the U.S. If the U.S. is the top one, and then Great Britain would be 22 344ths, which is a little bit less than half. Or a little bit less than 2/3, 2/3 of the way to the U.S.
So how did you know this?
Because 2/3 of 39 would be 26 340ths, and so I just put it a little bit less than 2/3 of the way.
Awesome. So I see that you did this kind of making another fraction that had 340, and you did that you did that 22 over 340 first in order to arrange it?
Yes, I did that first so I could compare it to the U.S.
Cool. The person who moved China all the way over here to the U.S., did you do the same thing? Did you do something similar or different?
I did the same thing. I doubled China to 38, so I knew it was just one less than the U.S. 38 out of 340.
Awesome. And so indeed, if there is that denominator of the 170, you might choose to do a doubling nature in it here. But not everything does double. And I see people putting their equivalent fraction in there. So if you'd like to, feel free to pop it right in. Let's see, who moved Italy last? If you think it was you, or you have an idea of what to do here. This is the only one I think that's a 68. How on earth do I manage what that is, what that means?
$68.
And if you have any ideas about Italy, we talked about doubling. There's other kind of strategies we could do to get equivalent fractions. Feel free to just share with us what your thinking is.
Multiply times 5. 5 times 68 is 340.
So we could multiply it by 5. Anyone else have other strategies that you could do to manipulate this fraction to get it up to that 340?
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
Simplify to 1 over 34, and then you can multiply by 10.
Lisa and Gail, I saw your comment there. Yes. So that idea is kind of divide, or let's put halving in, then multiplying. Kind of get it at that unit fraction. And speaking of unit fractions, let's take a look at some of these ones. If you see any other unit fractions, let me know. But here let's make them kind of a purpley pink color. Those ones are all unit fractions. That they all have a 1 in the numerator, which can make this an interesting way to kind of align them on the number line. Does anyone have any strategies that they'd like to share about unit fractions and how they decide where that unit fraction goes?
I'll share. I wasn't even doubling or halving or anything. I looked at this and I thought about the size of the parts. And was just thinking relativity.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Sometimes I'll have students, instead of making common denominators, their instinct, especially if they see a lot of unit fractions, is to put other things in terms of common numerators. So they end up getting a 1 over 7.5. But because they're thinking conceptually, they're still able to put that on the number line. So we've got a couple different strategies here. Lily, can we hear from you about this idea of a ratio table?
So I was thinking 17 and 340, and then when you look at 34, you can tell it's 1/20th of it. So by doubling or times 4, or eventually you can make the 17 into 340. So that keeping the relationship between 1 and the 17, eventually you will get there by multiplying by 20 eventually. You can multiply by 4, you can multiply by 5, and then eventually you can figure out that the proportion will be the same between the numerator and the denominator.
Absolutely. All right, folks, so we've talked about ordering on a number line. We used fractions that we don't typically see in a math classroom. Like I joked earlier about I haven't math teacherized this yet because sometimes we try to make the numbers like really nice for the kiddos, but this is just the real data of gold medals only from the Olympics, and it gives even our upper grade levels more experience sorting fractions that have really awkward denominators and ones that are larger than 100. So that's why I wanted to start us off with that. And then that's going to lead us into our rich task for today. On slide 9, I have the rationale of why I focus on rich tasks every single MATHurdays. And today's task is really going to showcase a type of a project-based assessment. This idea that it's very open, but yet there are some boundaries, some guidelines to really focus on. And before we begin, I want to give everyone the opportunity to pledge the problem-solving oath. I'm sharing it on slide 10, and you can read it with me. I, Teresa, promise to try my best. I will make sense of patterns and numbers. I will use manipulatives and drawings. I will make mistakes. I will ask questions. I will listen to other ideas. I will stay engaged by always trying to find another solution or representation. I am a problem solver. I make the world a better place. If you'd like to pledge that, go ahead and put your name in the chat box with all the rest of our pledges. And I hope that I am with the right audience to share some really cool graphics on the next couple slides that's going to prepare you for your task. So slide 11. You're probably used to seeing these numbers. This is a visualization of gold medals in the Olympics. Slide 12 is a visualization of silver, and slide 13 is a visualization of bronze. You'll also notice that the total of gold, silver, and bronze are not the same. There were 340 gold, 338 silver, and 402 bronze medals. And the other interesting thing is when we look at the country population, so we mentioned earlier in our number line, Slovenia had the lowest in the one that we put on that number line. I'm going to go ahead and showcase it here. But when you look at their population, like, gosh, that's kind of cool, man. Your population is like 2 million people. And you got a gold. Like, compared to the US, that's pretty great, right? So here I am. I want us to make a case for other countries being worthy of having a news article written about them because they did really, really well, especially when you compare other things. So here's your task. I'm down on slide 14. What I have for you is a template you can use for your students if they are to make a news article. You're going to have a title, some details, little place to post an image, and on the right-hand column, it describes like what you need to have included in your newspaper article. In other words, what your grading criteria is. Folks, don't feel limited to this. If you teach a different grade level, feel free to up it, bring it low, bring it high, wherever you'd like. But this is an example of some of the things that I would have my students showcase in here. And your task is in the little blue box to the left. It says, what country performed the best in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics? How do you describe the best? Create a newspaper article describing their achievements. Consider total number of medals, the weighted medal score, where a gold is worth 3 points but a bronze is only worth 1, medals per population, medals per team size, medals per GDP, and so on. There's some links down in the presenter's notes to get you thinking. But in the next 30 minutes, let's see the different news articles that you all can come up with. We're going to come back at 12:50. I'm going to go ahead and create those breakout rooms, very open-ended, and then just try to showcase the mathematics in whichever group you're in. Alrighty, let's see. Our rooms are officially open now. Feel free to head on into them. Grab your slide. Group 1, you're on slide 14. Group 2, you're on 15. Group 3, you're on 16, and so on. And folks, if you can still hear my voice, that means that you've got other people in the breakout rooms kind of waiting to hang out with you and learn with you. So head on down there.
There we go.
Hi there, room 3. I kind of condensed you because we had some people that weren't active on. So you were 2 different rooms, but now you're condensed together.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Teresa.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, Raha, we just pumped in. What slide are we on?
Are we 3?
I think so.
Then it's 16.
Okay.
Never mind. Hold on. It's 17. Sorry.
All right. So Val, do you have the slides, Val?
I have the slides. I have it up. So you said
Okay.
17?
Yes.
Yes.
So
I'm in there. There we go.
Perfect.
So we were just, I was just looking at the graph that is on slide 11. Yes, 11. And looking at the countries that had the most amount of, well, I'm sorry, should we do gold first? I should have asked that.
Oh, looking at gold medals?
Right.
You can start with gold, I feel.
Okay, so let's do that. If we start with gold, my logic was that Australia has the highest number of gold from the graph that's given.
Mm-hmm.
However, their population is 25,499,000 and so on.
Right.
And then Hungary has
Yes.
20, but their population is lower.
So so you're looking at population as the lens to compare?
That's what my thinking was. What do you guys think?
medal, you do see that the U.S. has a larger, but I'm assuming that area goes with the medal count, not the population.
Because China has a way bigger population
yeah.
than the US.
So I assume we're only going to compare these countries that are listed, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. And let's see. So Slovenia 5. So it just tells total medals, and we don't know what kind.
How did Teresa get the population? Sorry, she put it on the slide 11.
She maybe.
The population is in the first column.
Okay.
Under the blue.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so I just went to the actual article. So it's got all the circles, and then the medal count, and then the population. So I'm from Canada. Our population's way smaller. We never get as many golds as medals as anybody else. But I think our population, I should know our population. I think.
Hey, this is what's good in the U.S. The women got 60% of the medals in the Olympics, and the men only, yay.
Oh, okay. And the same in Canada. It was majority. At one point, it was 100% women with all the medals, and then we had one man and another man. Oh, majority of women in Canada won the medals. It was a big deal there too.
Yay for them.
Hey,
okay, goodness.
I was just listening in. Feel free to, you don't have to use the suggestions that I made. I think like the title of a paper is like Women Dominate the Olympics. Like, go for it. What's important with this kind of project based assessment is that you're able to kind of defend your reasoning and then show some mathematics along with it. So have fun with it. Think about how you can use it with your students, and go with it in any direction.
A quick question, Teresa, as we're looking at the medal counts, I know there were two, the guys that won the pole vault tied, and the high jump, they agreed to share the title. So I was just wondering why 402 bronze and only 340 and 338 on the other two. There must have been a lot of ties for third place, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What a great question to ask about the data, right? Is why is that the case? Do you do teams, does like a baseball team, does everyone get it? Baseball teams are rather large, right? What about
baseball team is one, but it counts as one.
Yeah.
So
what about when they dive in pairs? Do they each hold one, or do they have one that they share?
That counts as, they each get one, but it counts as one in the medal.
I think it's one medal, But
So anyway, okay.
So many questions. So not enough time to dig into all the information.
Did you spend a lot of time watching the Olympics?
A little bit here and there.
The rock climbing was really fun.
I never saw it. My daughter said, Mom, that would be a great math thing. Go watch it. And I've been working all summer, so I just didn't get to it.
Pull it up on YouTube and just watch a little bit of the speed, because it looks like spiders crawling up, or Spider-Man running up the wall. It was fun to watch.
Cool.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm going to go open one of these websites.
Oh, not the points.
Yeah, so the U.S. has gotten, I remember watching this because the U.S. scored one last gold on the last day, I think, of the Olympic Games, and then notched China to go on top of the ranking chart. So that's the total medal.
So we can still calculate the score.
So we're going to have to put in, are we putting in the weights then?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to copy this? It's really interesting that the flags are not coming up, but I can. Yeah, I remember talking to my daughter. Would you rather be at the top of the ranking, or would you care to get most gold medals? I think that was the conversation I remember having with my daughter. Okay, so I'm going to our spare slide on the 16th, wasn't it? 16?
Yes.
And then, so this is also,
15, 16.
maybe I can go to the right-hand side.
So I kind of started a table there.
Okay, and then maybe I will calculate
We need and I'm going to put in another column for the ratio.
3, 2, 1, right? 3, 2, 1.
So if you look at the upper right-hand corner, I grabbed the total.
Mm-hmm.
The two middle columns, and then just slide it over.
Okay, in one of the links that she has shared below, you have medals per capita. So they have actually given you the ratio of medals to the population.
Are you looking at the per capita or per population?
Per capita. If you see the link shared
yeah.
below, so it's already given over there. Let me check them.
I feel like Hungary might be.
Oh, sorry. I put San Mateo, but I went down too far.
Oh, no worries.
I'll just switch them.
I can do Netherlands.
It's so small to read.
I was looking at the link that Teresa had, like that Rowana talked about. If you switch it to medals by GDP, that's when it really changes, because per capita, per population, the totals don't really, the ranks don't change. It isn't until you do it by GDP that then it really changes.
Which one was that? The GDP
second link. The second link.
Yep. If you click on the second link and then you can sort it, like on the left-hand side, there's like a drop-down arrow. And then you can have the data sorted by capita, like by GDP. That's where you really are like, wow.
Is that in the link? Is that, you're saying that's in the link on that, on
yep,
slide
at the bottom of her slide, yeah.
Okay.
So then when you look at per capita, then you're like, the real winners are not the US and China.
That's so interesting.
Economically speaking.
Right.
And these are like, and the interesting thing about a lot of these are tiny countries. These are a lot of islands. These are small. This is where, oh my goodness, like look at Ethiopia or Bulgaria. These are smaller countries. Wow.
It's just interesting because if you think about like the type of media coverage a country would get, we wouldn't, like, I wouldn't even think about Bermuda as like the second top, like in the top 3. You know what I mean? Because that's not what's being covered. What's being covered is just the total number of medals and not necessarily population or other factors of each country.
Like even looking at the top 20, like how much, like that's a whole lot of countries. Those aren't island nations. Like even that, I'm like, geographically speaking, I'm like, wow, like the Caribbean, these are a lot of island nations that performed really well against their GDP. So like even geographically, like the part of the map shifts to a different part of the world. That's incredible. I hadn't even thought about it, like looking at, because it's got like the little map shaded, like how many of those countries, like how the shift happened.
And one thing I'm wondering now is, like a country like San Marino, to have 3 medals, right, in that way. I wonder, you know how often Olympic athletes will actually not be from a country, but
yes, yeah, because they train in other places, or they might have, you know, exactly. So how many of those medals?
I wonder.
Hi, group. It sounds like you all have a lot of background knowledge on Olympics, so much that I didn't even know about here that I've been listening into. And it's one thing that I always enjoy seeing in this is place value. And being able to read that population number is something that our, younger grades, we see a lot of just numbers out there, but all of a sudden these might have meaning to kids, especially if they happen to be from one of these countries or families from one of these countries. Like all of a sudden 329,019 means more than just some number we bring up in math. So it's always fun to see these big numbers out there.
Yeah, my students, those who gain the ability to read bigger numbers really love reading bigger numbers.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do. Especially like Teresa said, like when it's a country like that they have a connection to.
Yeah.
I mean,
or something that's just different than their billion million.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, when I look at it by GDP, like to me, the big headline is that it's island nations that are the winners of this Olympics. Like if I were a reporter, I have a brother who's a journalist, like I'm going to scold him later and be like, why wasn't your headline? Island nations are the ones who are taking home, like they're the ones who are really bringing it home for their countries, considering just like looking at it on the economic side.
I think you all might have a title.
Yeah. There you go. There's our headline, right? Yeah.
Right, because
we then do the point thing. What did you say about
just
the
look real quick. If you just do total medals real quick, okay, multiply Canada by 10, so that's not a whole lot more than the United States. I mean, just quick medals. So then that would be 240 medals. So Canada did much better medal number-wise than the U.S.
Huh.
Wait, Lisa, can you justify that statement? Canada did a lot better medal-wise than the U.S.
This was just a really quick look. Okay, Canada's population is 37.5 million. So let's multiply by 10. That gets us 376 million, which is not that much more than the United States. So if we multiply 10 times the medals, we're at 240 medals for Canada to 111 for the US. Yeah. And that's a rough estimate, but whoa, that pretty much says
so
it.
Fast, Lisa.
Well, I mean, I just did it by 10 because the populations, the three just popped out. And then we can't do it for the other one.
And this is just the Summer Olympics. Like, let's talk about winter coming up, right?
Oh my gosh, Canada is going to wipe the U.S. off the map, and so is Switzerland and Norway. And okay, 39 times 3 plus 41 times 2 plus 37 equals, okay, the U.S., I got 236 points. And then Canada.
236 points.
Okay, Canada, clear. 7 times 3 plus, this is so lazy, 6 times 2 plus 11, 44 points.
Okay, and we got, Lydia, you did the India, 11 points?
Yes.
Yeah, 3,
And
4.
then if we did, okay.
Now if we want to compare to this chart here where we get population per medal, the points don't really matter.
No,
but we can find out where we exist there, plus do an alternate comparison with the points.
Hey, do we want to do medals per population per medal for
what kind of multiplier do we want to put in, or do we want to just per million people? Let's do per million people.
That I like that. I think that may be easier to understand and comprehend, probably.
Mm-hmm. So how many?
So I'm gonna fix this.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Well, I keep sliding to the different people's group slide. Don't mean to do that. I used the wrong
2, 3.
mouse function. And Australia 25.
Okay.
25.3.
Great.
25.3.
Oh, okay. We just have to put the number in.
Yeah, I
Okay.
am going
China has a
to
lot of, China has how many million people?
Great Britain.
How many people in China?
Pardon?
Population. 1.439 million.
I wrote down the population on our chart on the 16th, so you can use that data if you want to.
Yeah, 23.6 million.
Okay, wait a minute. We've got to put it in like this.
Huh?
On the population, we just got to put in the number of million.
Yeah, you need to put the actual digits, I think, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, so don't put the million?
Don't put the million.
Yeah, I'll fix the Great Britain one.
Okay.
Yeah, I am putting things into the Excel file right now.
So
Will that work?
It's still loading.
Oh,
No, that's not right.
yeah, this one is just automatically populate. I need to recalculate the weighted score.
There we go.
Okay, let me try it again.
Oh, are you entering this as a million? So if I entered Great Britain that way, then that would be incorrect, isn't it? Is that what you're saying?
67 million, that's how many?
Do you want me to fix it to 67? Is that what you're...
Yeah, leave it 67.
Okay.
So this one is 28 and 23. Oh, okay.
Okay. So then...
We have one more thing that we said we want to look at, right? I forgot what that is.
Oh my gosh. So I have taught SPED inclusion for a couple of years, and I'm the gen ed teacher, and my SPED counterpart usually just focuses on their disabilities while I try to do this. So we have a lot of Hispanic population in our school. If I were to do this, I would probably pull out the countries that they're originally from or their parents are from, and see we can do maybe 3 countries at a time and do that conversation first, or even just one country at a time and see that conversation first and talk about all the different ways we can mathematically think about the medals, the population. Is it something that is a credible data point? But that takes a lot more time and patience. So that's how I would start, but I'm also 4th grade. You know what I mean? Well, I was 4th grade, so that's how I would do it in 4th grade. But if you were to do it in middle school, I wonder maybe 2 countries and see if you can compare. Start with population, then start with the ratio of medals to population. Just breaking that task into multiple, because if you ask Teresa, she'll tell you that she'll do this one task for a whole week. She wouldn't just give it to, typically she doesn't give it to her students in one day. It's just because we're older and we're educators, and she wants to give us as many resources as she can at a given time. So it's all at once, but you can ask her how she would kind of launch this and kind of section this off. That would be helpful.
Right.
So what does it tell us?
Right. What's the ROC?
It's Russia, actually, but they're not allowed to call themselves Russia because of the controversy that they have. so that you have to go with R or C.
They
I
have
see.
more people than that in their country. Something's wrong with the number on the population.
Okay, let me
Let's
double check again.
Oh, Russia.
Hi, group. Yeah, Russia is definitely different this year in the Olympics than ever before, and it stands for Russia Olympic Committee. And there's a lot of questions about population. What's this? How do they get the athletes? What hoops do you have to go through, and more, which just brings us whole other element that we could talk about in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very interesting.
But I think
Once
the population number has to be wrong there. They've got more people than Australia, don't they?
Australia has 25 million.
I think wasn't it the
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Wow, were those groups just really interesting to listen to. And I do want to take a moment to mention that this is kind of a framework for what you could do for a project that might last several days, even be introduced at the beginning of a unit. You go through your unit and then you have an end product. But there's a lot of different ideas that I thought teachers could take away from here. But I know that discussion was happening in a couple groups. So I just wanted to kind of start off with that. Let's see what the different groups were thinking about, because each group had a different lens, and it was pretty neat to hear it. We're going to go just in order for this one because we're going to see all three. You didn't have to have anything polished for this because obviously you only had half an hour to work on it, but just let us know, what was your group thinking, and what data did you use for it? We'll start off with group one, and if you want me to show a different slide or something, just feel free to let us know what number you're on. But group one, what do you have to say in your MATHurdays times?
Lydia, would you go for our first point? Is she there?
Sorry, it just took me a minute to unmute. Sure. So I'm just trying to navigate back to the slide deck. And yeah, so what we were doing is on slide, is it 15?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
kind of looked at the 3 different countries that we were from. Lisa is in the US and Gail, right?
Kathy.
Kathy is in Canada and I live in India. And so we looked at the population in each of the countries, the number of medals, the points, and then also the ratio for population per medal. So Canada is our top country. They have 1.5 million people, 1 medal for about a million, 1.5 million people. The US has 1 medal for about almost 3 million. And India is 1 medal for 195 million people. And so we kind of had conversations about why that could be. And I brought up how much money is spent on athletes as a country, or as even just, the kind of sports that Indians play and why there's no money in it and things like that. So from there, we also talked about how many women won in Canada versus how many men won medals in Canada, as well as in the United States. And so we talked a little bit about how much women and men in sports get paid as well. That was in slide 14, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where we were at. Kathy, do you want to fill us in on the benefits and the debt?
Sure. I was a kid in Montreal in 1976 where Bruce Jenner won the decathlon, and the province of Quebec owed money for decades. My dad's company was a concrete company, and they actually, I don't know if they ever got paid for building the Olympic Stadium. So I had that experience in hearing about my dad. But then in 1988, I was living in Calgary and I was a volunteer for the Winter Olympics there. And Calgary actually made money. Katarina Witt and Brian Boitano, for those of you that know the Americans and let's say figure skating, and there was lots more, but we actually made money in Calgary. The TV contracts were huge, but we just typed in some of the benefits, the facilities. Money comes when people come to your city. Public transit is improved, and people want to come because of the increased profile for tourism. So there were lots of benefits, but now I think generally many countries and cities are not bidding because there's more risk for losing money. So that's sort of my experience. And Lisa, go ahead.
I'll finish up. We just said if we had time to write, we would write an opinion article for our MATHurdays time and really talk about the money. And we did talk a whole lot about, so many of our athletes are professional athletes. So they are getting paid. And then we have the ones who are not professional, let's say our riflery people and our maybe wrestlers, and they get trained by the Olympic Committee, and trying to figure out how much it really costs per athlete to send them. We have no idea, but we really do think the money thing is an issue. And I saw something online that said it's been suggested to settle on one location for the Olympics, but the Olympic Committee lacks the power of choosing where it's going to be each year. But lots of good discussion.
Ooh, and a lot of mathematizing that could happen with the money in there as well. Thank you, Group 1, for sharing with us. Let's head down to Group 2. Tell us, what were you thinking about? What were some of the big questions you had?
So we've decided we wanted to look at a ratio of a weighted medal count where gold counted 3 points and silver 2 and bronze 1. Compare that to the million people, to the population. And so we ended up using a spreadsheet so that we could get some of those calculations done better. And then we're just starting to look at some of those numbers, and said Australia did probably the best on the ones we got done. If you have to figure out what we do about Russia.
Yeah, there's some real interesting things happening with Russia right now and their participation in the Olympics. One thing that I was really excited about that you did was this idea of the weighted medals. And while this usually brings on a lot of controversy because, like, is a silver really worth twice as much as a bronze? High school students in particular will really relate to this, especially if your school or school division is doing grade point averages as opposed to a numerical grade. So the idea of a 90 being so much better than an 89 in a class because one of them is weighted as an A and the other's weighted as a B. And there's, a lot of controversy and discussion happening about those. And that's another area that students might be able to weigh in on. Awesome.
We also started by talking about how do we define best. So we have a common understanding.
Yeah. So defining, like, what is it that we're defining? What are we doing here? Absolutely. Alrighty, group 3, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, so our group, we were looking at different things. At first, we were all over the place. We were looking at population, then we were looking at GDP. We were kind of playing around with some of the links that you shared with us. But what we noticed as across all the different, like if you sorted the data different ways, that San Marino seemed to really come up at the top, both in if you looked at population as well as weighted medals by GDP. So we were starting to think about, like, what is going on in San Marino that, this country is able to do it, to top the ranks. And just out of curiosity, we were looking at, like, what sport it is, and it's sharpshooting. And they actually didn't earn a single gold medal. So how is it that with 0 gold medals, just 1 silver and 2 bronze, they were able to top countries like the US and China?
Very cool. I love your little article here. And this group also discussed, were you all the ones that were mentioning the islands?
Yes, yeah. Because to me, when I looked at it when you look at it by population, then of course, like, you see a lot of countries like the US and Russia and China, of course, pop up, Canada, Australia. But then when you do it by GDP and you're looking at, like, the economics of it, you see the Caribbean really starts, the shift of the medals starts to shift over to the Caribbean. So you get a lot of nations like Bermuda, Fiji, Cuba, Puerto Rico, countries that you wouldn't think of. So it just shifts the medals over to a completely different part of the world.
Lovely. Well, folks, I know that today is packed with a lot of different math ideas. If you saw your grade level really represented here today, feel free on slide 20, just kind of put in a grade level and what you noticed. For me, just kind of going through most recently on slide 18, the group that was just talking, had that screenshot of the population and the number of medals. And I started thinking, gosh, here is a good reason to round, not because the math teacher bought 47 watermelons, but because I'm looking at population and, maybe certain place values aren't as important as others, so I can go ahead and round it. So rounding could be a great lesson to do just off of a screenshot of it. But if you see any other topics that you think could really be addressed using the Olympic data, go ahead and put them in here. And the last thing I'm going to do is I just saw on Twitter, like an hour before the session, that Mathagon has decided to also look at Olympic results using tables and data. So I'm going to bring up my lovely link here that I have for Mathagon and share that with you. And they're also focused on what is the best, but this time not necessarily the best country, but the best graph to show that. So I'll go ahead and pop that up on slide 20 here in just a second. But as always, thank you so much for joining us, because I've been very excited to share all that I've learned about the Olympics, and wanted to bring that here with you all. All right, here's the link to the Mathagon. Ooh, let's make that smaller. Now let's see if that one worked. So they just took a picture within Polypad, and it's see if I can get that one to come up. So essentially what I'm showing you here is what Mathagon put out. They've got areas now for you to make tables that turn into box and whisker plots. They have bar graphs, line graphs, circle, donut, and we've started to get more familiar with this triple bar laying on top of each other with the Olympic medals, because this red, purple, orange is like the gold, silver, bronze, and more. So those just popped up on my feed today. I'm really excited to try them all out. Figured I'd send them off with you all too. All right, folks, it's been a blast. I can see here that on slide 20, we have 4th grade, junior high, 6 through 8, definitely a lot of 6 through 8. Hope I've inspired you to use the Olympic data, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Hi, Teresa. Just before we go, I have a question for you, if that's okay. So next week in the Summer Institute, I'm co-presenting with somebody who has a lot of background in Division 1, so K to 3. And so I am doing snippets of this work. And she keeps coming back with, that's too much to ask the teachers because the people are really little and they can't handle the tech. And I spend more time in tech. I'm more comfortable with it. And I know you've shared the things about, like they make the farm, so they learn the skills for Control Z and rotate and duplicate. Is there any little advice? Like I'm trying to support her because she's a consultant to support the teachers, but I feel as if she's not, how do I say this? She's like dismissing the tech because it has to be hands-on, especially with the little ones. And I get that. I'm just wondering what, based on your experience, how you might respond or things you would maybe consider as I support her as well.
Absolutely. So one of the major places you can go to are ISTE standards. I think they're international. I'm not sure if that's something that you all use. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. I haven't looked at that for a long time, though.
So I, as a researcher, I always go to, like, who is the organization that is advocating for this? What are the standards that they're advocating for? As opposed to kind of bringing in my own experience and my own opinion, because I think people are very dismissive of that, or they say like, oh, Teresa, you're just a techie person. And I was like, well, Sure, but that shouldn't be a disadvantage. And so instead, I've started to do things like, our ISTE standards state the following. And so these are things that are grade level appropriate from the, the organization leads. And then it's not like your opinion. And I think that might also make it so that personally, sometimes I can get a little like defensive. Is that the right word for it? When people are just like totally blowing it off, like, no, but seriously, like here, this is my experience. But when I bring it up to standards for an organization, I have a lot more leeway. And that's just my experience as a coach with that one. And then
that makes sense, because I'm getting dismissed because she says, I spend a lot of time reading, you spend a lot of time on the computer. But I think, the teachers of these little guys, we got to stay away from the tech because everything needs to be hands-on. It's sort of like, that's your thing. And yeah, so this is a good suggestion.
Yeah.
So it's not about me.
And kind of looking at, if we're looking at life skills, also things that, they're going to forever use, or things that they don't really use much longer. There's plenty of things in the middle and high school that we learn and we might, as humans, just not really go back to. But in those primary grades, it's almost like everything they're learning are just life skills that they're going to end up using forever. And we can take advantage of that time with the technology too, to make sure they can do things, that they start to understand computer organization, as in, this is where this goes, this is the file for it. That's just a life skill. It happens to be through the modality of a computer. And then editing skills, things like using voice to text, and then spending your time editing your text versus hunting and pecking on the keyboard. That's kind of another life skill. So I worked with a bunch of first and second graders who just put in their sentence, and then they looked for sight words that they knew how to spell. They tried to change those. They investigated a little red underline. And so, trying to frame things also into the, how is this life skill going to be something that they use in the future and it's never going to be forgotten, can help too.
Okay, now that we do actually have and my colleague has a lot of background in special education. We have several teachers joining us this week with special education. So I'm wondering your experience, if there's anything different there. Again, she says, I think we need to be cautious. I don't think they can handle it. I just feel like we underestimate people, and I think we throw it out there and we give them opportunities. I don't know. That's sort of my thinking, but.
Yeah. So, and I can also speak, being a parent with a kid in special education with an IEP, and some of it is things that the technology is tough on. It's OT and speech. And so, I just mentioned the speech thing to you, but that doesn't work with my son because it doesn't recognize, since he doesn't pronounce certain letters. And so that can be rather frustrating at first. And so it's not to say that this one tool works for everybody. It's that this one tool has advantages for everyone in the future. But we might need to support some kids in a different way. In his way, he took a typing class and just really learned to type quickly, so he doesn't use the voice part. And then we've got kids who, executive functioning skills, for one. If you're ever going to have a platform to teach a lot of that stuff, doing it on a computer that they can have with them, that they don't have to organize in the same way that they would papers, is just going to be a huge advantage in their life. Other special ed things is, reminding the special ed teachers that it's not that you take this one modality and you say it's for everybody. And your special ed teachers are going to love you for that. They're going to start, cheering that. This is a choice. Here are some of the advantages, and here's how you make the most out of those advantages. And that's their basically job description there.
Okay. That's excellent.
Yeah,
Thanks, Teresa.
Sure thing.
Okay. Okay. Final thing, and I'm pretty sure I know your answer. My colleague, I consider myself professional, but she's super. She's finished her master's. All this. Can we share Teresa's stuff? I'm like,
Yeah, it's all available for free on there.
I know. So I'm just confirming. So when I meet with her at 8:00 Monday morning before we meet with our participants, and I said, no, it's fine. She said, are you sure? Because in our division, we have to really ensure we have intellectual property for what we share, or we make sure we acknowledge and go through the right process.
Yeah, so the things that I have on my website, it does say it there in the reusing, I can't think of the word, the privacy policies and all that, but essentially someone can't print it all out and then sell it as their own. So it's not can't be copied for sale. And then also just have on there my website so that people can go back to it, like they can go back to the source of it. But mostly I just, call that more sharing. That's what we do as educators.
Okay. I was pretty sure. So we're chunking the day into time together, and then they go off and explore, and then we come back together. And so we'll be sharing your website, and I'm directing them to certain spots. Depending, I'm working with the Division 2 in the afternoon, which is grades 4, 5, and 6 here. So I'm going to be looking and making some suggestions and then giving them some time. So yeah, it should be fun. And I'm pretty sure we'll have people that are like, oh, this is awesome. Even our Division 1 teachers. So.
Yeah, and for a while there, it was really working with that, what you're calling Division 1, in the idea of drag and drop. And there's so much that happens in problem solving and mathematics when you do subtraction. And so often, like, you take the pieces away, and that's actually not the best model if you're taking something away for part whole, right? So the idea that you can drag them from one area to another and you can still see the two parts is a huge advantage of technology that you just don't get the same feel for when you do it with your hands.
Yeah, because then it's gone.
Exactly.
And you can't even remember what you started with, right? When you're keeping all that. Okay.
Yeah.
The other place I'm going to go is I'm going to take them to the polypad. I was tweeting David and Mathagon this weekend because I was exploring the Rec and Recs. And I said, and it's under the additional tools. Like, if you don't look there, you're not going to find it. So when I work with these teachers, when we move them from counting and subitizing into additive thinking, and then even the 10 by 10 with the multiplicative thinking, we need that on there more obviously. So I'm like, can you not call it an abacus? Like, I made some requests, and I don't know what you think, but I don't think it should be called an abacus because it doesn't do the same thing. It's not designed in the same way, but maybe Rec and Rec or Math Rack. And I said, could you also have a cover, like a shade, so we can bring it down, right? So that you can see, if there's 20 on there and you see 6, what's under here? Like, I think of all the things we do with Rec and Recs, and I think they're super responsive to requests.
They are.
I think.
They turn stuff around in like a day or two.
Yeah. So we'll see how the week goes, but I want to take them there and show them. And again, my colleague said, see, you can't do much with the Rec and Recs on there. I said, but anyway, it's just time. But I'm going to go to the ISTE standards. That's a really good idea. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have a Mather Day next week or not?
I think I'm going to end up doing, because I didn't have it on the calendar, because I was going to be traveling back from Florida. I'm probably just going to be doing a back to school essentials where I throw a bunch of routines at people. So just kind of like a 2 hours, pop in for the time you want. We're going to just do a whole bunch of different math routines to get people jump started for the year. So I haven't advertised any of that yet, but that's what I'm planning to do next week.
Okay. Or take time off. You're doing a lot through the summer. Like, it's amazing what you're offering us and people that are participating.
I hope it's making a difference. So, it's neat when I go back and I see the number of people who've, looked at that video on YouTube. And I know that, so often we say, oh, let's do a rich task, but then we boil it down to like, one thing. We don't dive into it deep. And I've always been very passionate about them. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Teresa. Have a good week, and I'll maybe even send you a message or whatever if I have a little something with my colleague or the teachers, and I'll get back to you. But thank you for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.